Hey guys, and welcome back to another video, and in this one we're going to be continuing our Arizona Diamondbacks rebuild, and we're headed into year 2 this time, so 2019, and we're finished up with the offseason and we're going to go through everything that we did there. And we made a couple of signings, we lost a couple players as well, but you know, I really like what we did with the amount of money that we ended up spending. Our salary actually did go up, or not the budget, the salary for the players since last year did go up about, I think it was like, it's a little bit over 30 million, but that's mostly due to Goldschmidt and Corbin's contracts. Together they pretty much equal about 30 million. So Goldschmidt we actually did just resign to the 1-year deal because, you know, he was trending down, so I don't know if that's going to level off or if that's going to continue, and I don't want to be stuck in a long-term deal with him because it would be paying a lot of money for him if he's going to, you know, start to decline even more. So just a 1-year deal. We're going to see how he does this year. Corbin we signed to a 5-year deal for 13 and no, it changes every year. Excuse me. But yeah, we signed him to a 5-year deal. Somewhat more expensive deal, but you know, I think he's worth it. He had a very nice year last year. He's only 29 this season. So I do think that it could work out for us. That'll take him through age 34, though I don't think we're going to get to that point in this rebuild. But, you know, a very solid pitcher. He's really going to be our ace. We re-signed Pollock, who did really well for us last year, hitting 307 to a 4-year deal. I definitely wanted to bring him back. And instead of re-signing Buchholz, who's a little bit older, we re-signed Eovaldi instead to a 2-year deal. So hopefully he can keep doing what he was doing at the end of last year. I'm just going to go through and see if we kind of see who we picked up or whatever. I can't entirely remember everyone, but Joe Kelly we signed in free agency to a 2-year deal to kind of really strengthen that bullpen. I do think we have a very strong bullpen. We'll get into that in just a minute. Gaddis we signed to a 2-year deal to play catcher. Who else? We signed Harrison as a utility player. He really plays all different positions: third, short, left, right, second. So you know, it's probably going to come down to him or Marte playing second base on an everyday basis. The other will be a utility player. So that's kind of my thinking. Of course, we have Schwarber and Cishek. Anybody else? Duda. We signed Duda to a 1-year deal just to be a backup at first because nobody else played first base. So we really wanted to have someone that could slide in there. Duda also plays the outfield, the corner positions if we need him there. So that's good. So we kind of have all the positions kind of covered here. I'm trying to think if there was anyone that I missed. We also signed Chris Young, so we're bringing him back to the Diamondbacks. We signed him on a 1-year deal to be probably a 4th or 5th outfielder for us, probably the 5th outfielder, or a bench piece, or a depth piece if you know, if he's not playing too well and somebody else takes his spot. But aside from that, that really covers everything. We re-signed Delgado, the reliever, and everybody else I think I covered. The guys that we didn't bring back were John Jay and Brad Ziegler, who, you know, were in the mid-60s and, you know, a little bit older, trending down, so we didn't want to bring them back. Descalso cost too much. I was going to bring him back as a bench piece, but like I said, he cost a little bit too much than I wanted to pay. Dyson, we had a better option. Chris Young, I think. Maybe not defensively and speed-wise, but I wanted a bit of a better bat than Dyson provided for us last year, so we went out and got Chris Young. We did not bring back Escobar, who played a bunch of infield positions for us. And then Buchholz, who I mentioned before, we did not re-sign. So that really does it for the players that we brought in. The players that we did not bring back kind of covers the budget as well. So the budget did go up, but again, it's just because of Goldschmidt and Corbin's contracts, and Goldschmidt might only be a 1-year deal. So moving on from there, currently we are sitting as the 6th overall team in the majors by team rankings. Defense again is super low. I'm just really bad at prioritizing defense. Speed isn't the best, but I think that took a hit when we lost Dyson. But yeah, I mean, last year, before we jump into the roster, last year we did really well. We won the division. We went 96-66, I think, and it was a very nice year. We were able to beat out the Dodgers, also beat out the Rockies, everybody in that division, and we did very well. And I feel like we're still in a good spot to potentially win the division again, depending on what the other teams did. To bolster, I think that's the right word I'm trying to say, their rosters, and depending on that, we'll see where we are at the end of the year. But if we don't win the division, I do feel very comfortable saying that I think we'll be able to make a wild card spot. So we really don't necessarily need to go through the roster in depth. In our rotation, we got Corbin, Ray, Walker, Eovaldi, then Miller or Godley, depending on how they do, who I feel like going with will be the fifth starter. The other one will either be in the bullpen or a depth piece, along with Andres and De La Rosa. We got Bradley, Claudio, Kelly, Rogers, and Delgado. Hirano is always an option. He's actually increased in his overall rating since last year. The clutch is what I look at and get worried with, though, with him. So we'll kind of see about him. We got McFarland, who has gone up as well. So he's another option that's probably going to start out in the minor leagues. And Bracho is always someone that we can add to the 40-man roster. And then we have Cishek and Boxberger to round out the bullpen. For the catchers, we have Avila, Gaddis, and Murphy. Goldschmidt and Duda at first. Marte, Harrison at second. Andujar and Lamb at third. Gregorius at short. We also have Leyba, who I put onto the 40-man roster. And then in the outfield, we have Peralta, Schwarber, Pollock, Young, Owings, and Souza Jr. and Brito. So two moves that I do want to make actually before the season gets underway is I want to look for a deal to trade Lamb, because Andujar's at third. He's only going to get better, so I don't think that Lamb is really going to have a spot unless we hold on to him to play first, but I really don't feel comfortable with him playing every day with the contact and the power that he has versus the lefties as opposed to the righties. And I don't know what we're going to do with Goldschmidt just yet. We kind of have to wait and see. So I do think we can get a decent amount back for Lamb, hopefully. So we're going to probably look to move him. And we're also going to look to trade Avila, whose contract is not what I want to be paying a guy who hit 209 for us last year. That's really the main reason why we went out and got Gaddis, who can platoon with Murphy. But also Gaddis is pretty much capable of starting every day if we need him to. So yeah, I do want to move Avila, I do want to move Lamb, and potentially, I really don't know exactly what we're going to look to get back from that, because the Major League roster is pretty much set right now, and to me it looks good. We do not have a lot of organizational depth for the pitching side of things, so we may look to get that, maybe a couple prospects. But yeah, those are the two moves that I want to make. I am feeling good going into the season, so we'll see where things go. And I'll meet you back at the trade screen before we get started with the year to see what we can find for those two players. So for the first trade, we're going to be sending over third baseman Jake Lamb to the Atlanta Braves for 3 pitching prospects, one of which is a top prospect, so a potential. So the first two are going to be Trey Riley and Kyle Muller, both starting pitchers, both 21 years old, both B potential. Muller is a 64 right now, and Riley is a 65 overall. Now, I know the Braves have a lot of A potential starting pitchers here. It isn't even funny how much they have. But, I didn't really want to get a guy who was already 25, and I didn't want to get someone who was already, ready to be in the Major League rotation just yet. I wanted to try to get back as much as possible for Jake Lamb. So I do think we're getting 2 solid players here with a lot of upside. They do need some time still to develop, but they really could play a part for us if they're on the team at a point where they're ready to be in the majors and if we're still going with this rebuild. The third player that we're getting is Kenji Sasaki, who is a closing pitcher. He is the top prospect. He's 21 years old as well, A potential, 65 overall. He's probably going to be up sooner than those two guys. Those two starters, I think, if anything, they'll be up in the majors for us maybe by year 4, if not the end of year 3. Sasaki is probably looking like the end of this year, if not next year. But he's most likely to have an impact at the major league level for us, and he's definitely going to be the first one on the major league roster out of those 3. But overall, I really do feel like we're getting a lot back here for Jake Lamb. Really good trade for us, in my opinion. I think it really sets us up nicely moving forward to the future, whether that's through more trades for some of these guys, we can get some stuff back, or whether they're going to impact us at the major league level. And we still have to trade Alex Avila, and I do have a trade in mind. So once we find that, or once I have that on the screen, I'll meet you guys back here and we'll go over that one too. So for the second trade, we're going to be moving catcher Alex Avila and his $6.3 million contract to the Blue Jays for 3 players, 2 pitching prospects, excuse me, and 1 first base prospect. So the first player we're getting is Raul Alcantara. I did want to try to get a reliever back too in one of these trades, so we're going to pick him up. He's an A potential. He is 26 already, and he has pitched at the major league level in the past. He probably won't be at the major league level for us, obviously, because we do have a lot of guys who are already in the upper 70s and the 80s in the bullpen. But he is someone, if he develops, who could play a part for us moving forward in the future. The second player we're going to be getting back is Willard Sharp, who is a starting pitcher, B potential. He's 21. So, he is on the 40-man roster. I don't know how I feel about that. But yeah, we're going to be getting him back. We'll see about that 40-man roster issue. But he is a guy who has a lot of upside. He's already got some decent attributes in certain areas, and he's only 21, so he's definitely gonna have a lot of time to develop a lot more. So we're going to be getting him back. So that really strengthens some of the pitching depth in terms of prospects for us in the organization with these 2 trades. The third player that we're going to be getting is a position player in Bobby Bradley, who is 22 years old, B potential. He's already in the high 60s. He's someone that we can get for a big reason why I'm picking him up is in case Goldschmidt does continue to decline. We may not re-sign him after this year, and someone who could definitely fill in at first base, kind of a guy coming up, a rookie, could be Bobby Bradley, because he does tend to perform well moving forward. So he's kind of like the potential replacement to Paul Goldschmidt if we do not continue with him. And Duda is kind of there as well for right now as a placeholder if he is still there past this year. If Bradley's not ready just yet, Duda can always step in and fill that position for us. So again, just like the other trade, I think we're getting a lot back for Alex Avila, especially how he's performed in the past and that contract. So, I do really like this trade for us moving forward. So that's going to be it. Probably won't make another trade because I'm pretty content with the roster, the major league roster at this point. But, if anything comes up, if I find anything, if we make any signings or anything like that, I will definitely update you guys. Otherwise, I'll meet you at the draft screen once that is complete. So the 2019 draft as a whole was pretty underwhelming, as you can see the results of it. Only 2 guys here that we offered contracts to and signed. Everybody else was a D potential, and I really didn't see it necessary to sign them to a contract. I didn't think it was going to help us in any way. But the 2 guys that we did sign are left fielder Matthew Startup, who's 20 years old, 75 potential, so that's C potential. He brings some speed to the table, but other than that, he really needs to develop a little bit more, both defensively and offensively. Really not someone that I see making the major league roster for us at all. Even if we went beyond, 3-4 years, I really don't see him making the roster either. So maybe he'll develop a little bit better, be a little bit of a surprise, we can hope. But other than that, we might just look to use him in a trade if we need a guy to help a trade go through. And the same kind of goes for the second guy here that we signed, catcher Emmitt Smith, who's 21, and he's a 77 potential. You know, he's a very good defensive player, it looks like, has a little bit of speed, but really needs to work on his attributes offensively. So he definitely would need a lot of time to develop as well. Again, might be more of a guy that we look to use in a trade, because he definitely won't be being used at the major league level for us moving forward. So those are the only two guys that we signed, and we're pretty much going to leave it at that. Again, I don't manually do this. I sign the best scouts that I can, and I let the CPU handle the rest. And it was not a good outcome this time. You know, again, as I say in every video, if anybody has any tips on scouting, whether or not you're doing it manually or not, to get better results, please let me know. That'd be a lot of help, and it'd be very much appreciated. But moving on past this, a few updates here. In the standings, we are ranked 9th overall. Defense and speed has gone up a little bit, so that's always nice to see. But for our record, we're 29 and 32, so definitely not doing anywhere near as well as we were doing last year. But, you know, even though we're 11.5 games back of the Dodgers in the division, we're only 4.5 out of the wild card, so the season by no means is over for us. But hopefully we can really start to turn this around moving forward. We have a decent amount of players who have been having pretty down years so far, like Corbin, an ERA of over 5. Ray, same thing, even higher. Eovaldi's been doing pretty well in the rotation, and then we have Godley, who we just called up because Walker had an ERA in the 7s. So we may actually look to trade him, because he probably could get a decent amount back for him, since he's only 26 and he's a B potential. And then we have Miller, who's not doing too bad, ERA under 4, so that's a nice surprise for us to have him doing pretty well. But again, as a whole, the rotation really needs to step it up. But then moving into the bullpen, the only guy that really is struggling is Alex Claudio, who, you know, I'm not really sure what his trends are in terms of if he declines or develops more. You know, I feel like sometimes he does decline, even though he's pretty young. So he may be a guy that we might look to trade him. Who else? Walker and potentially Ray. So moving forward, we're kind of gonna watch those three guys a little bit more closely, to see how they develop or decline. Bradley's doing pretty well. Kelly's having a solid year, as is Rogers and Delgado, who his ERA has gone up a little bit recently, but still a pretty decent year for him. His whip is a little high. We'd like to see that come down. And then Cishek and Boxberger are both having nice seasons as well. As for the position players, we got Gaddis here, who's really not performing at all. I don't know why. Maybe he's just having a bad year. But, you know, hopefully he can turn that around. I'm not really sure what we could do with him, because I don't know what we could get back for him. We could always look to see what we might be able to get back in a trade, but for right now, we kind of are hoping that he can turn things around a little bit. Murphy's performing well, and Varsho, who is that catching prospect for us, is performing nicely in the minors, and he is developing still. So if he can get that right-handed contact and power up a little bit more, I wouldn't really worry too much about the catching situation, because he could take over in the platoon against righties, which is where Gaddis is playing right now. Moving to first base, Goldschmidt is performing well, so that's nice to see. He's actually trending up a little bit more since the beginning of the year, gaining back a little bit in the attributes that he lost last year. So, you know, hopefully, fingers crossed, he can maintain and not decline, and maybe he can stick around for a little bit longer and help this team win past this season. Duda is not getting a lot of playing time, and when he is, he's not really performing, so we'll keep an eye on him. Harrison is, you know, he doesn't bring a lot of power. Thought his average would be a little bit better, but, you know, maybe we'll look to platoon him with Marte, because Marte is doing pretty well on a bench roll, hitting over 300 so far. Andujar is having a nice year so far. Gregorius is, you know, not terrible, but not as good as I thought he might have. He is a free agent after this season, so if we do continue to struggle, we'll probably look to trade him. But moving past that into the outfield, we got Peralta and Pollock, who are both having down years from last year. Souza Jr. is, I don't know, he's doing all right. He's not doing too bad for what I expect to see him do. I do think his average was a little high last year from what we can tend to expect from him normally. So we'll see how he does moving forward. Brito we actually called up because Chris Young was not doing well at all. So we swapped them on the Major League roster. And then Schwarber, who really wasn't getting a lot of playing time. You know, I had him in the right field spot in the lineup for playing right field, against righties. And I don't know, they moved him out. The game moved him out of that position, and I had to go back and put him back in. So I'm going to keep track of that and make sure he's able to get some playing time. But other than that, you know, as a whole, the team really needs to start turning things around a little bit, and hopefully they can moving forward. We got a few pieces that we might look to trade, and you know, if we continue to do bad, then a couple more pieces like Gregorius. But hopefully, like I said, we can turn this around, and you know, we'll see what we can do at the trade deadline, if anything, and I'll update you guys once we get to that point. So we're currently at the All-Star break, and the team was, I mean, it was doing better after the draft through the month of June, but then the last 2 weeks before the All-Star break, they really started to struggle. And I really wanted to address it. I wanted to make some changes here and bring in some players that might be able to help us. Now, we're going to be making a trade with the Phillies, 3 players for 3 players. We got David Peralta, who is not really performing as well as he has been, or as well as he has in the past for us. And he is a free agent after this season, so I think it's a good point to use him in a trade here. So we're going to move him. We're also going to move Gregorius, who is trending up, but hasn't really performed for us the way he performed with the Yankees. And, you know, I really wasn't looking to resign him after this season, so again, I do think this is a good time to move him. And we're also going to be putting in Matt Andriese to this trade, who is a starting pitcher, kind of like a depth piece for the starting pitchers in our organization, who really is more, you know, I would use him more as a bullpen piece, but we're already pretty good in the bullpen to some degree. And, you know, I really think it's better suited to use him in this trade. We're going to be getting back 3 pieces. One in Edibre Ramos, who's a reliever, who's having a really good year, and he's only 26, still trending up. You know, he can really help out the bullpen, who has been struggling of late. We're also going to be bringing in Asdrubal Cabrera, who plays a lot of positions on the infield, third, second, short. He most likely will be filling in for Gregorius for the rest of the season. He is also free. Maybe he's not a free agent. I don't know if that 2-year deal is including this year or if it started this year, but either way, when he becomes a free agent, we probably will look to not bring him back. But for the time being, he's performing very well this season, and I think if he continues that, he could really help us out offensively. And then we're also going to be bringing over Rhys Hoskins, who is the biggest name in this trade, who's really hopefully going to be an impact player for us and really kind of be like another Paul Goldschmidt in a way, that big player who can really carry the team and that we can build around. So hopefully this trade helps us out moving forward. These guys, hopefully they perform well, perform the way we expect them to. I really do think that we're getting back more than we're giving to the Phillies. So yeah, I really hope this trade helps us out a little bit. It helps turn us around and get us going in the right direction. We really need to turn things around sooner rather than later if we want to stay in it to get into the postseason. Yeah, most likely I'll meet you guys back at the trade deadline for any trades that we make then, and we'll kind of go over to see how the team is doing at that point. Alright guys, so this is going to be the first trade at the deadline. We're probably going to make another 1 or 2 depending on what I can get back, because I do still want to address both the bullpen and the rotation. But in this one, we're going to be getting back, the main piece here is to get back a catcher in place of Gaddis, which was kind of a bad signing on our part. Hopefully someone who can play better, not just now, but moving forward. So we're going to be acquiring Blake Swihart from the Red Sox, who is a B potential 78, and he's got a lot of contact versus righties. So we're hoping that he can platoon well with Murphy, him taking the righties in place of Gaddis, and Murphy still sticking with the lefties. He does hit for a nice average for the most part, so I'm hoping he can continue that. And we're also going to be acquiring Jace Peterson, who is a depth piece on the infield, someone who we might look to use more next year if we don't re-sign Harrison, or if we need someone to fill in a position there. More so a bench piece than anything. But we are going to be giving up Dusty Hoff, who we signed in the offseason because he was so young and he had decent attributes, and he is trending upwards, but he is a C potential. And guys that I guess one thing that I've tended to notice, I don't know if anybody else has noticed it, but guys who are really good, regardless of their potential when they're younger, tend to drop off a lot sooner in this game. So I don't know if that's going to be the case, but in this trade it works, and he really isn't playing a part at the major league level right now, even though he definitely could. But either way, we're going to be moving him to the Red Sox in this trade, along with Evan Gattis, just to open up that catching spot. So hopefully this trade helps us out moving forward. We did play a little bit better from the All-Star break, so we're only a few games under 500 now, and we have a chance to still make a run for the postseason. So I'm trying to do that without completely trading away all of our assets and bringing in a lot of salary with big players. So we'll kind of see how this one works out. Hopefully it works out for us, but once I find the trade to address the pitching situation, I'll meet you guys back at this screen. So we're going to be making a trade here with the thought process that we're going to send this guy that we're acquiring in a deal for a major league impact reliever, or at least try to. And if not, we have a pretty high rated prospect reliever in our system, which, so it's kind of like a win-win, I guess. But if we can use him the way I want to use him in an upcoming trade, it would really help us out a lot. So Mejia here, we're going to receive from the Royals, who's an A potential. He's 22, 67 overall, closing pitcher. And to acquire him, we're going to be sending the Royals Eduardo Diaz, who is a center fielder, C potential. He is 21, 62 overall, along with a third baseman, Queracuto, who is 26, C potential, 65 overall, and then a starting pitcher who's really just a depth piece for us, and he's not even on the 40-man roster, Henry Owens, who's 26, C potential, 72 overall. Kind of creepy looking, but yeah, so hopefully this deal works out. I do want to use Mejia, as I said, in an upcoming trade to help acquire a big league impact reliever to help us out down the stretch and in the future. So we're going to put this trade through, and I'm going to meet you guys at the screen in just a moment to see what I can do to get this guy who I have in mind. So this trade isn't exactly what I was planning on making. Things changed up at the last minute here. We're not even going to be using the guy that we just acquired in the last trade like I was planning on. But we are going to be trading away Robbie Ray, who really has not performed as well as we'd like him to over the past 2 seasons. And, I think this is a good time to move him. And I do think that he's going to help us get what we're getting back in return here due to his value. We're also going to be moving Randall Delgado to make some space in that Major League bullpen to bring in a nice impact arm. He has pitched pretty well for us, but he is trending down a little bit. And out of all the arms there, he's the one that I felt most comfortable with moving on from right now. We're also going to be moving Yoshihisa Hirano, who's been hanging out in the minor leagues for us really pretty much this whole time. But he is capable of pitching at the major league level, and he should get the opportunity to do that with the Orioles, who is the team that we're going to be trading with. And in return for those 3 guys, we're going to be getting a nice, solid bullpen arm, potentially even closer, in Michael Givens. The one thing I am worried about is how well he's going to perform, because I don't know how much him not being in the closer's role is going to affect him, because you can see that he expects to be the closer, but we have Bradley there, so he's probably going to be our setup guy, but I'm a little worried about how that's going to affect him. But either way, I do expect him to pitch very well for us and really help strengthen that bullpen that's been struggling a little bit lately. We're also going to be receiving 2 high-end prospects, both closing pitchers, both A potential, both pretty young at 18 and 21. And from these trades, we're really gonna for the future have some solid back of the bullpen arms that are really going to help us out moving forward in Sasaki, Mejia, and now Pryor and Merced. So that's going to be it for this trade. I am going to try to find something to address the rotation because trading Ray does leave a hole there. Though we do have De La Rosa and Walker even, who we can call back up and hope that he pitches closer to what he did last year. So we do have two options there, but you know, we really lack an ace since Corbin isn't really pitching to what we expected him to do for us. So if we can find someone who's able to be at the top of the rotation and we can you know, make a trade happen for them, we'll do that. Otherwise, I will meet you guys at the roster screen and kind of go over some things really briefly, just where the team is at the moment. So until one of those two, I will see you guys in just a moment. Alright guys, so we ended up not making any more trades. I know that leaves the rotation a little weak, but you know, there wasn't really anything that I found that I was, you know, that I thought would really help us out, that was worth giving up the players that they required to get. So right now we actually are 51 and 55, 4 games under 500, 19 games back in the division of the Dodgers. Though in the wild card we're only 8.5 back, which is still a lot of ground that would need to be made up. So I'm a little unsure about whether we are going to make the postseason this year, but we're going to try. And if not, we'll come back next year pretty strong and look to get there next year. But you know, we're still 9th overall in team rankings, so we are doing good. This might more be just a bad year by a lot of different players just having down years. So we'll kind of see what happens moving forwards. Moving into the roster, we're going to have Corbin obviously still as our ace. We got Eovaldi, Godley, and Miller, who these two are really pitching pretty well. So I'm happy about that. And same with Eovaldi, who's really pitching pretty well. We're going to give Walker another shot at the rotation this season. And, you know, if he struggles, we can always bring up De La Rosa to see if he can, you know, fare any better. We have Bradley, Kelly, Claudio, and Ramos in the bullpen, along with Givens, Cishek, and Boxberger. Now, Cishek, I completely forgot that he was struggling that much on the year. I did want to trade him, but, you know, at the moment, I think we're going to stick with him. Him and Claudio are struggling a bit this year, and you know, I'm a little unsure of what to think about them moving forward. I'm hoping that they're able to kind of regain what they were doing prior to that and, you know, help us out down the stretch. And Kelly here is, you know, he's struggled a little bit of late, but for the most part this year he's been pretty well and he's still trending upwards. So, you know, hopefully the bullpen can keep it together here and really help us out, especially with the rotation a little bit on the weak side. Moving on to the offense, we got Swihart, who we picked up in a trade, and he's going to be platooning with Murphy in place of Gaddis. We of course have Goldschmidt at first, Harrison at second still. Marte is going to play on the bench. Of course, Duda's on the bench. Andujar and Cabrera are having nice years still. And then in the outfield, of course, we have Hoskins. Schwarber, we're going to try really hard to get him more playing time. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if he's like being taken out when the game gets played or what, but you know, I have him in there versus right-handers, so we'll see what happens moving forward. We're going to try and get him some more playing time. We got Pollock, of course, and Souza, who's struggling a little bit, but of course Brito here, who came up and was hitting like 350 for a while. He's fallen back to earth here, but still a decent player. We'll see how he continues to trend moving forwards. But hopefully this is enough to really help us out down the stretch. Not so sure if we're going to make the postseason, but again, like I said, we're going to really try for it. And if not, we'll come back strong next year. But I'll meet you guys at the end of the year. We'll see how everything went, see what all the players did, and we'll discuss what the team's doing and what we're going to do moving forward from there. So we made it to the end of year number 2 with the Diamondbacks, and unfortunately, we took a bit of a step back this year from last. We did finish 83 and 79, which was nice just in that we made it over the 500 mark, because the majority of the season we were struggling to get back to there. But we are 10th overall in team ratings. We did drop a little bit again, mostly in defense and speed. But you know, a lot of players this year just, I feel like, had a bit of a down year for a good portion of the season. And we're still a good team. We still have a lot of good pieces in place, a lot of young players that could potentially develop and really help us out. So, you know, moving forward, I do think that the postseason is still a legitimate goal and something that we can definitely do. Hopefully we can bounce back and perform the way that we should be performing right now, and definitely see the Diamondbacks here as a team to make it to the postseason next year, whether that's through winning the division, which would be very difficult to do, or whether it's just through a wild card berth. You know, either way, they're still making the postseason, and that would still be a very good you know, goal to reach for next year, and that's what we're going to be aiming for. So definitely still a good team moving forward. Moving into the awards, we really only had one guy. Who was it? It was the Silver Slugger. I think it was Hoskins. Yeah, Rhys Hoskins won the Silver Slugger for us in left field. And then for the league leaders, we had a bunch of guys actually for the league leaders. We got Hoskins, who was actually third in batting average. Andujar down there towards the bottom, hit 299, just shy of 300. It was good for 12th in the league. In hits, Andujar was second with 193, which was really nice to see. Really big improvement from him from his first year, so that's really good. In the doubles, we got Andujar and Harrison reaching the top of the leaderboards there with 38 and 37 respectively. In triples, we don't have anyone in triples actually. Moving on to home runs, Hoskins was third or fourth with 41. We had Andujar there who hit 31. RBIs, we have Hoskins with 103. In runs scored, Goldschmidt was on the leaderboards with 98. He had a decent year. He kind of dropped a little bit in his average as the year went on, but the power numbers were there a little bit more than last year. So again, I'm not really sure what to do with him moving forward. Probably sign him to another one-year deal, but we'll get to that in next year's video. Moving on to stolen bases, Goldschmidt and Pollock were both there in the top of the leaderboards with 21 and 20 stolen bases respectively. Walks, we got Goldschmidt who made it with 83. On base, you can see Hoskins is there over 400. Slugging, Hoskins is just under 600. And OPS, Hoskins is just shy of 1,000. Now moving on to the pitching side of things, Eovaldi made the leaderboards with 14 wins. He had a very nice year. Moving forward to the saves, we got Bradley with 43. ERA, Eovaldi was actually 10th, just over 3. Home runs allowed, Eovaldi only allowed 13, which is pretty good to get for an entire season for any pitcher. Miller with 17, he made the top of the list there too. For the shutouts, we had Eovaldi with 2. Strikeouts, Corbin with 227. So he kind of turned his year around in the second half a bit. Definitely ERA is a little bit high for him, especially for what we're paying him and for his overall, but you know, he definitely turned it around in the second half. Complete games, we got Eovaldi with 2 as well for his 2 shutouts. Inning pitched, we got Corbin getting over 200, and walks, we have Eovaldi with only 50. And of course there's whip, but nobody made it for whip. And then we get into the WAR categories here. Eovaldi with 4.6, Corbin with 3.6. Batting WAR, surprisingly Hoskins is not there. Pollock is 5.3, Hoskins is only 5.2. I thought he'd be higher, but you know, we had some players with nice years, obviously, that, as you can see. Again, you know, we got some good players on this team. We're in a good position to win. We just got to capitalize on it next season. Moving into the roster, we got Corbin, who had a bit of a down year, as we saw. Definitely turned it around the second half, so we're hoping that he has a bounce back year next season. Eovaldi with a very strong season, so you know, that worry that I had in signing him to a 2-year deal, at least for this season, was wiped away. So he had a very nice year. Godley came up and pitched pretty well, as did Miller. Very nice seasons from them, and Walker came up and definitely turned his year in the other direction. Came back a little bit stronger in the second half when we called him up. His ERA was lowered about 2 whole points, so that was very good to see. De La Rosa, of course, didn't have much playing time, nor did Sharp. And I don't think there's anyone else on the roster there for the starting pitchers. Bradley had a very strong season in the closer role. He had 43 saves. Blown saves, he had 7, so a little bit more than last year, but still a very shutdown year on his part. Claudio came back a little bit stronger in the second half, which was very nice to see. I was a little worried with him, but he came back and had a solid year. Kelly, the same as well. A nice year, just under 4 for his ERA. Ramos had a very strong year, both for us and Philly, so we're very glad to have him on the roster moving forward. Rogers, I sent down around the trade deadline, I think, if not a little before that, but he definitely did struggle. Hopefully he can turn things around moving forward, though he is declining quite a little bit there in certain areas, so it's a little worrying to see that. McFarland did not pitch for us, but Bracho might be someone that we put onto the 40-man roster next season. For the closing pitchers, we got Givens, who had a strong year. Definitely didn't keep up the level of pitching he had for the Orioles, but again, that was to be expected, as his ERA I think was like 1.6, and of course he wasn't in the closer's role, which is what he wanted to be in. So he is trending down a little bit, so we'll have to keep an eye on him moving forward. Cishek struggled a bit still, so probably not going to continue with him next season. Probably not resign him because he is on the final year of his deal. Boxberger had another very nice season, and Pryor did not get a chance to pitch, nor did Sasaki, but they are both 2 guys that are going to be potentially big players in the bullpen moving forward. Swihart came over and he struggled a little bit more with us than he did with Boston, but still a solid year for him. Murphy, another solid year. A lot of power that he's showing compared from past seasons, but he had a very nice year. Rosario didn't really get much of a chance to play. Varsho, of course, is definitely progressing nicely, moving, developing. So hopefully, or maybe, in the next year or two, he can definitely be at the Major League roster. Moving on to first base, we got Goldschmidt again with a little bit of a down year in average-wise, even from last year where he struggled a little bit too. But, the power went up a little bit more, and again, like I said, in the league leaders, I'm a little unsure about him moving forward. I might look to sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal at the end of this year as well. Probably won't be signing him to a very large contract, but maybe just kind of go year by year with him. Duda got a little bit more playing time as the year went on, and he capitalized on it a little bit, hitting 288 with 3 homers. Bradley only had 1 at bat, didn't get a hit, but he's someone that could definitely be a player moving forward to watch. Harrison finished the year strong, 14 homers, hit 285, so it was a nice year by him. Definitely improved upon the first half, which wasn't really necessarily a bad first half for him, but he definitely picked things up in the second half. Marte struggled a little bit in the second half, so pretty much the opposite. He hit 255, but he was a decent bench player for the year. Peterson did not really play much for us, but he is someone that we can look to potentially have on the bench moving forward. He did perform very well this year, more than you would expect him to do. I wouldn't expect that to be the case moving forward. Maybe something, if he does well, maybe something along the lines of 2018 here. Third base, Andujar, we know, had a very nice second full year in the big leagues. Really improved upon last year, so hopefully he can keep that going. Cabrera remained consistent for us. I don't know if his contract is, actually we can check. So yeah, this was the last year of his contract. Probably won't re-sign him, but again, nothing's ruled out moving forward. Leba was called up in September, didn't get a chance to play, but he's someone to keep an eye on. Hoskins performed really well, definitely our MVP for the year. Hit 315, 40 homers, 100 RBIs, on base over 400. Did really well, very well. Really excited to have him on the team moving forward. Schwarber didn't get a whole lot of playing time, but I'm looking at him being that third outfielder instead of Souza moving forward. But, hopefully he can do better in the next year or two. Pollock picked it up a little bit in the second half, had a solid year. Young came up and did a little bit better, but, we probably won't be re-signing him again. Micah Owings had a little bit of playing time, and Brito kind of hung around 250 for the year. So he had a decent year on the bench for us. Definitely a fourth or fifth outfielder for us moving forward. And Souza struggled a bit. Probably going to be that fourth or fifth outfielder along with Brito, and we're going to have Schwarber as the third starter. So overall, a lot of guys struggled this year, and a lot of those players actually picked it up in the second half. Unfortunately, we weren't able to make up the lost ground that we had from the first half of the season. But moving forward, we're definitely looking to be a team that is looking to get into the playoffs next season. We have a lot of good players, still a very nice team, and next year should be a lot better. But real quickly, let's jump into the playoffs and see what teams made it and which team's going to win the World Series this year. We got Pittsburgh against San Francisco on the wild card in the NL, Minnesota against Boston in the AL. So we'll see who wins those. Pittsburgh has been eliminated, and San Francisco is going to be taking on the Dodgers. The Mets are going up against the Cubs. Seattle's going up against the Yankees, and Cleveland is going up against Boston, who won the AL wild card. Minnesota is going home. Now through the division series, we got the Cubs made it against the San Francisco Giants for the NLCS, and we got the Yankees against Boston in the ALCS. Seattle, Cleveland, New York Mets, and the Dodgers have all been eliminated. Moving on to the World Series now, we got San Francisco in it for the NL. Cubs have been eliminated, and Boston's up 3-2 against the Yankees, tied 3-3. And we got the Yankees taking on the Giants in the World Series for 2019. Boston has been eliminated. So, with that, Yankees are up 2-0. Yankees are up 2-1. 3-2. And the Yankees have beat the Giants in the 2019 World Series. So, another dominant year for the Yankees for their, 28th, I think? 28th? Yeah, I think 28th World Series title. Crazy stuff there. But yeah, again, the Diamondbacks should come back nice and strong next year, and hopefully have a bounce back season. A lot of bounce back years for individual players, and hopefully we'll be able to do a lot better than we did this year. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this, feel free to leave a like. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And until the next one in year 3 for the Diamondbacks, I will see you guys later.